think that's what our listeners need to think about is like, is there value here? Is there something, that I can do that this book would help me? Well, hello and welcome to another guest interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and our guest today is Melanie Herschorn. Melanie is a book marketing expert and publisher, and dedicated to helping you step into the spotlight as an authority, as a publisher and book marketing expert for attorneys, wealth consultants, and business owners worldwide. She empowers authors to share their message with the world. With over 20 years of experience as a celebrity publicist, award-winning journalist in radio, print, and TV, as well as a clothing designer and entrepreneur, Melanie is uniquely positioned to support authors in becoming thought leaders and making a significant impact with their books. When I started in the green room with Melanie, I said, why in the world would somebody want to write a book? And I think that's where we're going to start our conversation. But before that, Melanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
And I'm excited to have you. But first, people might not have heard of Melanie Herschorn, and I just read a prepared bio, but tell us a little bit about yourself and why publishing and book marketing expert. Why'd you choose that? What brought us to this juncture?
It was not a linear journey, I'll say that. You alluded to the big ones. So celebrity PR in Hollywood. When a famous comedian told me off on my birthday twice, I said, that's it. I have to do something else. Got a master's in journalism and worked on the radio. I was a news anchor and reporter, planned to have a baby in a non-election year, and then got laid off when I was 5 months pregnant. So I then moved across the country and started again and thought, what can I do now? I could pay a nanny or a daycare more money than I'll make as a journalist, or I can design and manufacture breastfeeding clothing, which is something that I'd wanted to do. And so I did that 7 years, and I made a hire that was unfortunately regrettable and the beginning of the end for my business. It was a marketer who belittled me every single day for an entire year. And eventually I closed the business and I was a shell of my former self. And I thought, what do I do now? Because I really love to support people and amplify their voices. Publishing and book marketing was actually a logical next step for me. And so I love to help attorneys write a book and market a book because they have so much knowledge, and that knowledge can then go to help them grow their business when they do it in a strategic way with a book.
I really wish that you'd go back to creating the clothes for the breastfeeding moms. My wife really struggles in that department and
I
finding
still have
right
some in
clothes.
my basement I can send you if you'd like.
I'm sure she would love it.
I'd be happy to.
So we'll take that up after the show. But I love your journey and where it went and how you got there. Unfortunately for you, that you had to have some poor experiences along the way in order to get to this point. But let's start to address the elephant in the room. I mean, we've got 500 to 1,000 attorneys who are going to listen to this episode, and they're all going to be sitting there saying, a book? Me? Why? Why would I take that on? It sounds like a ton of work. Who has the time for that? Talk to me about the the benefits of a book, and then we can maybe talk about the how of doing it. But why would I even consider it?
Well, not everybody should. So I'm not here to say, oh, you should write a book, because I don't live in this box that everybody tries to put people in. But if these things ring true for you, then perhaps you should think about it. Number one, you work in your practice, you're working with people, and you have a lot of questions coming at you that you're constantly repeating the answers to. That can be a great foundation for a book. So the books that I help attorneys write are marketing books. They are to help you grow your brand. It's not a memoir. It's not a legacy piece per se. It's really about taking your knowledge, your expertise, putting it into something that's tangible, that can help you develop your authority, your credibility, and grow your book of business. Imagine sending a book to a prospective client and they call you and they say, okay, you're hired. That's the beauty of publishing a book.
So when it comes to attorneys, is there specific practice areas that would be better suited for books versus others? I mean, even in your example of like, hey, you have a prospective client, you're going to send them a book. Um, I I think if I was selling a, 20,000, $30,000 service, then, that might make sense. But if I'm doing, $1,500 bankruptcies, that's gonna that's that sounds like a lot of work and maybe not so effective. So
Agreed.
and I don't know if you know enough about the legal industry to even answer the question, but what are your thoughts there?
Well, I agree with you. I like to think I know enough about the legal industry. This is where I like to hang out. So the answer to the question is no. If you have a $1,500 client, that is definitely not a great plan, especially since if the kind of law that you're practicing requires quick turnaround and it's more about quantity over maybe higher quality. So the practice areas that it really lends itself well to are business law, IP law, family law, estate law, things where you are, developing longer term relationships. If you have a client and they're in jail, they're not going to sit and read a book for a while to figure out if they want to call you to help get them out. So I wouldn't say that criminal defense is necessarily although there are some amazing stories. So I guess if you want to be speaking on stages as a criminal defense attorney, then that could be a really fun book to put together. But in general, when you are creating a book to grow your brand, the clients that you service are those who have some time and they have some money. And that's how that beautiful marriage works.
So let's say that I am in the business area that a book would make sense, right? w- I presume that a lot of people might say, yeah, but who am I to write a book, or what am I going to write about, or you know, is anybody going to read what I wrote? Are those the questions that we should be asking? What are the questions we should be asking if we're even considering thinking about writing a book?
Well, I think a great question to ask is, what should my book be about?
Hmm.
And that's one of the things I love to help answer because you have to have a plan for the end before you even sit down to start writing. So your book should be a way to market your brand and your business as a whole. So if you are going off on a tangent, that is not going to serve you in the long run. And, I was actually just talking to an attorney, and she was saying that she wrote a book with the intention of pivoting her career. And it ended up not helping because people just kept seeing her for her previous work and not for the new work. So when you're thinking about writing a book, it's best to already have a number of years under your belt, knowing that you are not planning to upend everything and start again, but that this can be that credibility piece, that authority piece that you're missing at this point. And to speak to the confidence thing that you kind of mentioned, like, who am I to write a book?
Hmm.
The truth is, everybody's story is so important. Like, your story is important, Moshe. My story, I like to think, is important. Everybody has unique experience that makes the world a bit better. You're going to change somebody's life by sharing your story. Maybe you went through something, maybe a client went through something, and we as humans, we relate so much more to stories than facts and dates and figures. So it's what makes you memorable and relatable. So even if you send your book to somebody, it might sit on their nightstand for a year, but then they're going to remember you. They're going to remember the stories, and they're going to call you when they are looking for an attorney who does what you do.
Yeah, I love that. And this idea of, hey, it's gonna hang out there until they get to it, or they're gonna read it, put it on a shelf, forget about it, but then they'll remember when they need it. It really good points. I think the other thing is that it just gives you a level of authority that, it's hard to come by. Like, you can anoint yourself an authoritative person, right? Anybody can say, yes, I am the authority on X. I'm doing that right now. I'm behind the microphone on a podcast called Profit with Law. I've made myself the authority on profiting from your law firm. I don't have a certification that makes me the authority. I mean, maybe I do. I'm an accountant. I'm certified, right? Like, I'm a profit first professional, certified by Mike McAllis's organization. But still, I've decided to make this my thing, to make this my stand, that the podium I'm going to stand from, and people are going to know me as the profit guy in the in the legal space. Like, that's where I am. But if you want to be the personal injury firm of New Orleans, right? Like, whatever, I just picked an example. Um, Having a book about the biggest settlement, or, whatever, like something related to the work that you do, um, is going to put you in a league above. That's different. I don't know about above, but it's different than everyone else.
It definitely helps differentiate you from the other people in your practice area. And, you hear so much about SEO and Google ads, and that's all well and good. But just because you have a sponsored ad doesn't mean you're going to get the right clientele clicking on it. And the book, it sets you apart.
Yeah, and I think if you've got some really good war stories, it's just icing on the cake, right? Like, if you can make it interesting and captivating, then that just makes it better. Because it's one thing to have your name on the cover, it's another thing to have the pages inside of it read.
Absolutely. And, there are so many silly cliches like don't judge a book by its cover, but you know what? We all do. And so your cover should look good, but what's inside counts. There's my other annoying cliche. And so that's why I, as a book coach, publisher, marketer, I'm looking at it from start to finish. And I had a client, he sent me a draft and I read it. I said, this is a fantastic how-to manual. We need to have some stories injected here. This page, this page, this page. And I started marking down the pages and, sort of pulling out of him, that's my journalist fun, pulling out of him the pieces that we were missing. And then all of a sudden you have this really great book that's infused with value and stories. And, it doesn't have to be a 500-page tome either. My book is about 110 pages, but it gets to the point. I don't believe in necessarily speaking in flowery language. I think that you can get your point across and make a difference.
Yeah, I love that. And as we're talking, like, my mind is going in different directions. There's so many different things that we can talk about. And a lot of them are around the how to, right? So I'm gonna dive into a few of those questions, but I think that I want to pull back out of it at some point in this conversation, because I, I think the how to is, hey, you're an expert. This is what you do. Like, have somebody reach out to you to get those questions answered, right? Um, but I'm thinking, like, are we talking about going to a publishing company and landing a deal, or is this like self-publishing a book and putting it on Amazon and hoping to game the system to be number one for a little while?
Okay, it's neither of those things. So, but I'll try to do a little primer on what I'm talking about. So yes, there are traditional publishers, but that requires you potentially getting an agent, pitching your idea, and then it's going to be a lot of time. You're spending a lot of time waiting and hoping. Then there's the self-publishing, like really going down the rabbit hole, figuring out how to do it all yourself, and hoping to publish on Amazon. There was actually a guy who published a picture of his foot once on Amazon and made that a bestseller. So we're not going in that direction either. So what I do is independent publishing. So I am helping from beginning to the end, myself and my team. We are helping you write this book. We're going to outline it with you. You're going to be the writer because it's your brainchild. But then our team will have it edited and we will publish it on the 2 platforms that you want to be published on. So really getting in the weeds here. I hope that's okay. There's
Yep.
Amazon, which is Kindle Direct Publishing. And then there's Ingram Spark. Ingram Spark is the platform that allows bookstores to buy your book and stock it. So if you want to be on barnesandnoble.com, target.com, walmart.com, if you want to be in a Barnes and Noble store, you have to be published on that platform as well. But we don't stop there because a book in and of itself is like wallpaper unless you have a promotion plan. And so, yes, we work on getting you to become a bestseller on Amazon, but that's not a marketing plan. A marketing plan is, doing a podcast tour, getting a media release sent out to the media, getting on stages. So that's the kind of stuff that we are focusing on so that the book has ROI as opposed to just being in a box or on a shelf, which it's not helping you.
So I mean, look, it sounds doable. It doesn't sound like a lot of hard work, and we just kind of engage with you and make it happen, right? But we still need to write it, right? So there's some level of effort needed there. What's the time frame? Like, how long does it take from like inception of like, hey, I have this idea, I want to write a book, to my book is out and published and for sale, and I'm doing my book tour?
Less than 12 months.
Wow. Okay. And then what's the type of investment financially? Like what should somebody be ready to invest? Because it's not just your services, right? It's also, I mean, you just described needing to have some sort of publicity around it, right? Which is going to require you to travel places and speak places and do things like that. So what kind of budget should somebody be allocating, saying, hey, if you're going to proceed down this path of writing a book, make sure you're ready to plunk down X number of dollars?
All right. Well, let me ask you this. How much are they spending on SEO each month? And how much are they spending on Facebook ads? And what is their ROI on that right now? So it's probably going to be less per month than what you're spending on ads or maybe a billboard that isn't really doing much for you. But if you want actual numbers, it's about $3,500 a month.
Until until the book's done.
Yeah, but what it is also a marketing plan that you have endless, resource to pull from for your book. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
I'm not. So my question was more about being able to, for somebody to be able to figure out whether they should even consider this journey. Like,
Mhm.
okay, so if it's 3,500 a month times 12 months, we're talking about 40,000, 40 to $45,000 investment.
Mhm.
So you just need to be prepared to spend 40 to $45,000 on this investment, in order to proceed with it, right?
Absolutely.
Um, and again, I'm the numbers guy, so I'm not coming. The question wasn't from, is this worth it? It was
Right.
just, okay, let me, if you're trying to figure out how to scrape 2 pennies together to make it to next month, probably not the time you should be venturing on writing a book uh project.
Nope.
But if you're at a juncture in your journey where it makes sense to perhaps invest 12 months and 40 to $50,000 on this to create that level of authority, create that publicity, and something that I guess it seems like you put the effort in once and it's there for you, right? Like you always have it. Then maybe it's time to think about that.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. And I wasn't trying to be cheeky. I was just trying to ask the questions because sometimes people say, well, I feel like I have to do this. I have to pay for these ads because that's what everybody does. But often I see it isn't working, but they just keep throwing good money after bad, hoping that something will change.
Yeah. And when I have these conversations, I'm always like thinking about my clients, and I can picture at least one client that a book would be a perfect thing for her. Like she's not going to be doing the Google PPC. She's not going to be like, but she's has a very specific community that she serves. And the book would allow her to tell her story. She's got so much story to tell. And intertwined and interwoven with the service she provides. I think it would be perfect. I think that's what our listeners need to think about is like, is there value here? Like, is there something that I can do that this book would help me? Now, a lot of times books are positioned to kind of like get somebody into a funnel, so to speak, right? Like get them to take some sort of action throughout that's mentioned throughout the book that's going to put them into, a mailing list that's going to try to drive them to a sale somewhere. Is that the kind of thing that you're doing, or is this more like, hey, I'm just writing a book and I'm going to use it to just kind of give people and hope that some people are going to buy on their own, and ultimately that will drive business down the road.
So it's somewhere in the middle of that as well. I love your polar opposite questions because then I come right down through the middle. So, yes, you don't want to waste valuable real estate by not mentioning where people can find you online and not doing your best to grow your email list. However, it is not a sleazy bro marketing funnel either. I think we're all kind of tired of seeing the man lying on his Lamborghini by the ocean in all the photos. Like, we're done with that. That's inauthentic. So, this is truly a way to showcase yourself and market your business in a way that doesn't feel icky or phony. And it also, yeah, it can grow your email list. You can, there's so many ways to leverage the book once you have it. And sure, within the book, we say, if you are suffering from this issue, you're struggling with this problem, here's the link to get on a call. Or here is a link for bonus book content. I mean, there's no reason why you can't have extra content for somebody that lives online.
Yeah, I love that, and being able to just give them something that enhances it. Like if I were to write a book, I don't know, I might have a link to like calculators and stuff like that somebody can then access and use to kind of put together what we just talked about in the book and their real life specific situation. But then put that behind a paywall where they need to put their name and email address in to get access to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the paywall doesn't actually have to mean payment.
Right.
It's just a wall so that you then get to reach out to them. Because if they're already invested in terms of having read your book and they've gone to the website to find out more, they're definitely a warmer lead than if they'd never seen your book at all.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay. So I've got this idea. I'm trying to figure out if I should write a book. I decided I'm going to write a book. I need somebody to hold my hand and get me through the process. So I'm going to get in touch with Melanie to try to figure that out. The book writing process itself, is this the kind of thing where I could just like, I'm in my car commuting between my house and my office, and I'm just going to hit record on my phone and I'm just going to talk to it and I'm gonna have a book. Like, is it that easy? Do I need to sit down and put pen to paper? Like how much editing is being done for me that, can I just kind of like ad lib the ideas that I want to put in there and then it gets written? Or is that more like a ghost writing kind of thing?
Okay, I think I got all the questions. So Okay, so yes, you can write in your car using your voice while you're commuting. Yes, you need an editor, and that's why I have multiple editors on my team, because this needs to go through many editing processes before it is ready for public consumption. You want to have line editing and copy editing and proofreading on top of that. But when I sit down with a client, we're outlining the book. So we're going to know what's going in each chapter. It to me, the way I see it, the way my brain works, I don't know if you ever saw the Queen's Gambit about as a chess show. And she would look up at the ceiling and she could see the chess pieces moving and figure out how to play the game against an opponent just in her mind. I'm going to say I'm not as brilliant as that lady, but I do listen and hear, and then I'm able to see where the pieces need to go for the chapters of your book to really create an arc that's going to attract your ideal reader. So once you have your book laid out, then it's just a question of plugging in the information, which may already exist in blog posts. It may already exist in interviews you've done on podcasts. It also likely lives in your mind. And so when you verbally vomit it into your notes app on your iPhone, that is a great place to start. It's time intensive and brain power intensive, but I don't think you'd be comfortable not putting your all into a book that bears your name.
Yeah, 100%. I understand, agree. I'm thinking in terms of all of the lawyers who are saying, I don't have time for this. I'm busting my hump 60 hours a week or whatever. Like they're sitting there saying, hey, this is a great idea. But how in the world am I going to be able to add this on top of everything else I've got going on? And I'm assuming that at least some of your clients are in that space.
Oh,
And
yeah.
how do they do it?
Yeah, I mean, we're all like that, right? Every busy, I mean, you mentioned you've got a wife, you've got children and a business, and it's like, well, where do I fit it all in? And if you can find 30 minutes a day, you can get so far. There are also people who go to a Starbucks on a Saturday and sit for 6 hours and bang out a whole book. Well, not a whole book, but parts of a book. I'm one of those people. You kind of have to know how you are. Are you somebody who can just put the blinders on and go for hours, or do you need little bits and pieces? But I know that it is doable because I've seen people do it. And as wonderful as you are not alone in this. You can really do it too.
I love that. And I can relate to both the 30 minutes a day and the 6 hours in the Starbucks. I can do neither of those, but I can relate to those. Um, I don't know. I mean, for me personally, it would be a stretch. I got four little kids at home. And it's just I can't even find 30 minutes to work out. Can't imagine 30 minutes to write a book. But
Well, I'm going
I
to
could
stop you there and
sorry,
say
go
you
ahead.
have a podcast called Profit with Law that has lots of wonderful nuggets that you can go and transcribe and pull from, and I bet you could find a book all in there.
Sounds like the work somebody on my team's gonna have to do.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's the point, right? Like I can totally like I'm walking the dog, pull out the phone and record, right? Like that I could do. Not gonna sit at the computer and start to form a paragraph that makes any sense. But it's not about me. It's about our listeners, right? So, yeah, if you can find 30 minutes a day, or if you can, get away on the weekend for a few hours and knock a chunk out, just do that weekend after weekend for 40 weeks, and boom, you've got
No,
your book
not that
written.
long. Yes. It's not that long. I mean, we're not talking, like I said, we're not talking about a 500-page book. And it's amazing when you get somebody talking about their examples of their cases that they've worked on and clients that they've worked with. It's amazing how quickly they can regurgitate a story, and that becomes, several pages in a chapter.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. All right, cool. So we're just about out of time, and this is really exciting. I mean, I know we just brushed the surface of what you do and your expertise. We're gonna close out with these two things. Number one, parting piece of advice or wisdom that you want to share with our audience. Number two, how can people get in touch with you? They want to explore this idea further. Maybe think about doing this themselves.
Okay. Well, I would say the parting wisdom is that you are special too, and that you deserve to share your story with the world. So don't let all the silly things we tell ourselves stop you, because if you have this inner desire to be an author, you deserve to do that. And if you want to reach me, well, you can schedule a time on my calendar. It's meetmelanie.vip.
Cool. That's easy.
Yeah.
We're gonna link that up in the show notes. So you don't even have to remember that if you're out for a jog, something I don't have time to do, or if you're in the shower or whatever you're doing while listening to this podcast. You can go to profitwithlaw.com, check out the show notes, and we've got all of this linked up for you. And if you are not subscribed to the show, we've got rock stars like Melanie showing up to every single episode, every single week. We have a ton of a massive value here in the channel for you. So go to YouTube, go to Apple Podcast or wherever, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and hit that subscribe button so that you get notified the next time we release a new episode. And speaking of YouTube, we've got a ton of video that is outside of the regular audio podcast that we produce. And that's all there for you to binge on as well. So you can go to profitwithlaw.com/YouTube, get redirected straight to our YouTube channel, or just search for us on YouTube with Profit with Law. Folks, we'll be here next week with another amazing interview. And Melanie, really appreciate your time and sharing your expertise here with us. And I hope that I start to see some books crop up in the next 12 to 18 months from this episode. Would love it, folks. If that happens, if you listen to this, you're like, hey, there's a book in me. Let me contact Melanie. You write a book, please share it with us because we will give you a ton of social media for it because we want to talk about how, wow, this book came from the Profit with Law podcast. All right. Take care.